Welcome to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. What's your train wreck? Everyone has one. The question is, are you going to live there or are you just visiting? Let's check in with Mary, Fran, and Kristen to learn how to come through not broken, but brilliant.
Hey everyone, before we dive into this week's episode, we have a resource that we wanted to tell you about.
Transform every week of yours with our Brilliance Bit that will deliver right to your email inbox. Sign up for it at brilliantlyresilient.net and keep living brilliantly resilient.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. We are excited today because we have a new friend. Our friend is Carlos Aponte. And I just love what Carlos does. It has something to do with, which you'll find out, education and kids and an alternative method of teaching kids and reaching them. I'm going to give you a quick bio and then we're going to get right into this. Carlos is a lifelong Philadelphian. Woo! Traces his culture to the island of Puerto Rico. Carlos has a background in secondary ed, but after close to a decade inside of the classroom, realized the shortcomings of traditional education. And with the help of students, he started We Love Philly, a nonprofit org that teaches volunteerism, entrepreneurship, meditation, gotta love that, ownership and content creation to youth. This is interesting, left behind by mainstream solutions. After completion of their program, students can earn credit towards their high school diploma, and they're currently scaling the program to be implemented in schools around the Philadelphia area. Carlos, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you both.
Well, I have to say, when I was reading your background, and we were chatting a little bit before we started about what the best part of our day was, and Kristen and I both kind of hooked into starting our day off with these things that are physical, but reach us mentally as well. Kristen does a lot of running, which I absolutely refuse to do. And I was doing my yoga practice. But the thing that strikes me about what you do is it's a holistic approach to the student as a human, as opposed to necessarily just a brain that we got to stuff things into. So tell us about your experience and how you kind of got into this and made it into this space.
I have been teaching, as you said, born and raised in Philly, went through Philly schools, left Philly. My mom didn't want me going to high school in Philly, so I went to high school in Delaware County. And it was there that I saw the differences between a suburban school and a city school. And that kind of laid the seeds of, oh, this isn't fair. Something needs to be done here. So then I went to Temple after I graduated, and I've been in Philly ever since. And going through my own trauma, working with it, going to therapy, being forgiven by people who didn't really have to forgive me, really helped my own awakening and helped me see the operating system that I was working with. And once I had those realizations, I was like, oh, wow, people growing up in Philly who come from a traumatic background probably are having the same or similar things happening to them. So I wanted to make sure that when I created We Love Philly, that I was first dealing with that social emotional piece before anything else, because I don't think any learning that you're going to take beyond the classroom is going to stick with you unless you remember how a person made you feel, instead of just what a person told you.
So I'm curious, Carlos, how does this program work? Is it embedded in the classes all day? Is it extracurricular stuff that you do with the kids? And I'm really interested in this as a former elementary school teacher, but also when when I was going through the height of the madness of my divorce, I realized a friend of mine that's in education said, Kristen, every school has some kind of program that might be able to support your kids. And I've been talking about this now with so many people that come to me in their divorces trying to support their kids. And it really isn't it really isn't as widespread as I guess it should be. And I'm interested to hear, and this was more like a watch and see if they implode kind of thing, as opposed to giving them some foundational blocks. So back to that's a little background on why I'm asking, but back to my original question, is it built into the school day or do you come in and do some extra stuff?
So originally, I was a history teacher. And then We Love Philly was an after school program that I started. And then based on what we were doing, it got more and more traction. And then it became a during school time program at the school that I worked at. So they saw what we were doing, having the success, making the content, doing the work in the community. And then the way I was able to do the curriculum, it was an elective credit that young people could take this class during the day and they could get credit towards their high school diploma if they needed that elective credit. We had a little bit more flexibility because I worked at an alternative school that worked with high school dropouts. So if they came to the school, they're 16 to 21. If they go to school year round, they can get a diploma in a little over 2 years, and they can get a credit in about 14 weeks. So
Wow.
this was one of the classes I was offered during the school day while I was teaching history. And then September 21, we were all coming back from COVID. And they were like, hey, we need you to be a full-time history teacher because no one knows what school's going to look like. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm going to leave and do We Love Philly full-time. And then I left. And then they called me the next day saying, hey, can you still do We Love Philly? So I guess they didn't think I would leave. So at that point in September, we had our own space in West Philly. We're at a big giant farm in West Philly, and the young people came to us after school to do We Love Philly. We started doing projects where they could get paid an hourly wage. They were still getting elective credits towards their high school diploma. And yeah, they were creating and doing projects that they wanted to do. So yeah, our new model moving forward. So I had to take a step back this fall. I'm inside of a school offering We Love Philly during class time, but I had to take a step back to work on the business instead of being in the business and teaching 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So the state of Pennsylvania, so this is for everyone if you live in PA, recently changed the graduation requirements for high school students. If you need to graduate in Pennsylvania, you have to score proficient on the 3 state standardized tests in order to get a diploma. What that means for Philly is half of the young people in Philly do not score proficient on their state standardized tests.
Wow.
So there's about to be a big high school graduation problem. The district is unfortunately behind on this, and a lot of schools are attacking the lowest hanging fruit and like, hey, what can we get them? Because the state also passed down alternative pathways towards graduation that young people can take. So some of schools are like, we'll teach to the test. Others are like, hey, how do we check the lists on these alternative pathways? But they're doing it in a way that is the quickest, most cost effective, and yeah, quickest to be implemented. So We Love Philly is changing their trajectory since I knew this was coming down the pipeline. And we're going to be offering those alternative pathway programs to everyone in Philly, but we're going to get them real world experience, real credentialing that they could use after high school, pathways to full-time employment, earning livable wage jobs through apprenticeship programs while they figure out what they want to do next instead of going to a college and getting into debt to figure out what they want to do next. So yeah, it's really just listening to what young people want and then finding the money to make it happen and then centering their voice and then creating the culture and systems in place to hold all of us accountable.
Wow. So the idea of this is where I kind of get concerned about the whole proficiency thing and kind of, balancing that with what, frankly, I see as not that the proficiency is not relevant. Clearly it is, but there's definitely been a lack of real world education and real world coping skills and real world awareness of what it takes to function as an adult when you get out of school. So given that the school systems are already stretched thin, how are they going to put these two things? I mean, how are they going to work this? Like, what's going to be that balance factor where because you just used a phrase that I think really sets a lot of people's teeth on edge, and it was teach you to test.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's not what we're trying to, like, we don't want them to just know how to test. So how do they get the knowledge and then balance that with the very valuable work that you're doing in terms of creating a fully functional human?
I think, as you both know, it starts internally. I think one of the major problems, at least from my perspective in Philadelphia, is there's such a major disconnect between administrators and teachers and the young people. They can't relate to one another. You have pre-internet people trying to teach only know the internet people and doing it the old way, and brains are just different. Trauma in Philadelphia is, and the realization of trauma and people going through it needs to be taken into account. But that all starts internally, like with your professional developments, with your educators, right? Is your educator lashing out on a student because of something that's going on inside of their home or something that happened in their past, and now they're downloading their trauma onto this young person who's already coming from a rough background? I think it starts there, because these alternative pathways that the state has passed down is really an opportunity to innovate if you're willing to come to the table, take that step back, be honest with yourself, say that, hey, we need some system change, we need some interchange, and then we can create what needs to be created to best serve our young people. I agree with you. The teach to the test method, like I said, I've been teaching in Philly for almost 10 years, and our young people do not want to do that. And I don't know if you ever tried to learn something that you didn't want to learn, but it doesn't stick.
Calculus, anyone?
And especially trying to do that when the brain now is subject to 1,000 TikTok posts a day. So like, how are you even storing all of this content on your brain? So I think the only way out of it is to create that programming and do what schools, I think, are supposed to be doing, right? Is how are we interconnected with business, with the community? How are we getting our young people exposure? How are we putting them around people in their community who care, who have the buy-in, who know that a graduated base of teenagers who are entering the workforce, all of those major statistics that everyone want to see lower to feel safer, or those major statistics to where we're going to make more money, all starts with this generation coming in. And everyone has, I feel like, that same buy-in, or they should. So why aren't schools leaning more into that and saying, hey, maybe we can't do this all alone for 8 hours a day while they sit in this room in 2022? How can we get business involved? How can we get nonprofits involved? How can we get community involved? And I think that's the major pivot. It's just from my experience in Philadelphia, some of these schools don't want you to see behind how good they sound on paper to see what's really going on. So
don't look at that man behind the curtain.
yes, exactly. They're a little
Always
hesitant.
a Wizard of Oz quote with me, always.
Yes, they're a little hesitant to let these other organizations in, but it doesn't matter what. That doesn't matter. The young person should be put first, and if that's what's best for the young person, then, and you're not willing to adapt, change, and evolve, then you're not supposed to be in this field. Quite frankly, like, to go somewhere else, because this is what a young person needs, and we are the providers of that. And if we're not providing that, then we shouldn't be here.
You know, what you're talking about here in terms of these partnerships and connecting the kids to the community and leaders and all, you're talking about the elements of being brilliantly resilient, and also the elements of success. And I'm thinking, I've raised 2 blind sons that are very successful, and I often say it was that what everyone perceives as the biggest adversity became such an advantage for them because they had to be educated differently. And you're essentially saying the same thing. I mean, these kids that we or young people that we might look at and say, oh my gosh, they had so much adversity in their lives, but because of this program, they get to see it in a whole new perspective and connect with folks that other kids in the mainstream aren't being able to have those opportunities, which is unfortunate because everyone should have that opportunity. But what an advantage for the young folks that you are working with. So that is making me so curious. What are the kids saying about this program?
Oh, they love it. It's funny. after this, I'm meeting one of our recent graduates. We're going to sign a subcontractor agreement. He's not sure what he wants to do, but he doesn't want to go work. He just graduated. He doesn't want to go work for another company. He's been with We Love Philly since the beginning, and he believes in it, and he wants to see it grow. And I'm like, hey, we're getting there. Once we get the state apprenticeship approval, I'll have some more money. You can be a full-time employee. He's like, whatever. Like, I'll do 10 hours a week and pay me this, and then let's do it, because this is where I want to stay and this is where I want to be. And they'll be our second student subcontractor that just recently graduated. One of our students sits on our board of directors. They've taken ownership of what this is and what they want to do, and they want to see what it's going to become, because we put them around people who move with integrity, right? You met Keith. Keith has met some of our young people. Like, that's our culture and values. If you're not moving with integrity, you don't get near our young people, because this is what we need as a community. We need those people who aren't going to leave after a short period of time, and who are going to stay and do what they say they're going to do. And yeah, that's that. They've taken ownership of it. We took I don't recommend anyone do this by themselves, but I took 11 of them to Puerto Rico for 10 days to do a service.
Oh, you're a brave man. You're a brave man.
We all stayed in the house together, but that created that bond even stronger. We just threw a holiday party. We were able to give presents and resources to over 700 families in North Philly. All of our young people came out to that. One was an elf, one dressed up as the Grinch, I was Santa Claus, the other was the photographer, the other made the after video. Like, this is, yes, they understand that we can no longer wait for the people who say they're going to do the things to do them. How can we do it? And they feel safe doing it, because we've created a culture where failure is celebrated. It's a part of the learning process. They see me not know what I'm doing, but try it anyway all the time. It's this journey of trying to create a school that I've never done before. So we're all there, and we all get that. And yeah,
you're hitting all of the things. Kristen and I are both like lighting up here, because you're talking about values, which are so huge to us. And, failure, we always say, when we started this whole thing, we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, we had bits of knowledge that we then just combined. And I think that what you're saying is you're finding these kids' brilliance within their individual stories. And again, to Kristen's point, you find a lot of that in trauma. So I'm going to go with the flip side of this. Kristen asked how the kids are relating to it. How are the community and business members and whatnot that you're working with responding to this? Because to the point that you're making, we are not just releasing brains into the world. We're releasing humans, when they get out of school. And that trauma experience that, Kristen and I have had as adults, and you may have had it. Do people recognize in the business community that these kids, they have a bit of a kinship with them, and support is something that really will help them all?
Yeah, I feel like that's the hard part for a lot of businesses as they grow, right? Is, hey, we have this culture, we have these values, and are we willing to say no to people who have the money that don't align with that to join our tribe, essentially? And yeah, so far it's been great. People understand, people get it. They know that these young people are earning and learning, and we're just frank and upfront with them from the get that we're doing this, and we're not doing it for us. We're doing it for the generation of young people who are going to come after our young people leave. And it's the same with the mentality when we have these communications with our business people. It's, these young people are going to mentor the next generation of young people based on how you're mentoring them on the job. So like, that is your responsibility. And if you can't handle that, then it's okay. Like, we can still collaborate on a smaller project, but if our young people are going to be here with our apprenticeship program, they're 40-hour-a-week employees. So
Hmm.
like, if we sit down, everything's out in the open, everything's communicated. Here's a list of competencies. Luckily, I'm the teacher, so I'm like, here's the rubric, here's the competencies, here's all of the things. But like, this is your word. This is what we're meeting. And if our young people isn't meeting it, they understand that this might not be a good opportunity for them. No hard feelings. It's just everything is laid out on the table and everything's moved with integrity. And that communication is everything, because just myself growing up in a traumatizing background, right? You internalize everything. Is it my fault? Did I do this? What did I do wrong? I'm the worst. And then that spiral, that hamster wheel spirals really quickly. So we have to make sure that yes, these people on the job are with them, communication, you're available, we're checking in, and yeah.
Here's what I love so much about there's two things about what you're talking about. First of all, your face lights up when you talk about the young people that you work with. It is extraordinary to witness, and it has been so fun for this time that we've been talking. And I also love in the whole process of becoming brilliantly resilient and living brilliantly resilient, it's watching, things don't, I don't know about you, but things don't always go according to plan with most of us. And you're like uncovering this additional layer of brilliance as a teacher with all those skills. And then you add this whole new component with these young people that you're reaching. It's making my hair stand on edge, that you are so the brilliantly resilient picture of what we talk about. So my question now, though, is, like I said, I guess maybe everything went completely according to plan when you were setting this up, and no problems whatsoever, and you're just basking in the limelight of it now.
Please tell us how that happened.
Were there some hiccups or roadblocks or things you didn't expect, or any one in particular that you had to really pivot and rethink some things?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, the first 2 years that we left Philly, had to do it completely free, and do that while being a teacher. So that was really hard. Like I said, I became our first full-time employee last September. So before that, all of the groundwork leading up to be able to take that leap and leave full-time employment with a school was I wasn't being paid for it. So that was hard. Building shipping containers when you don't know how is very hard in the winter. That was hard. I have a scar on my leg from a shipping container door falling on it during my learning process. I don't like to teach the young people anything I don't know how to do myself. So last year, we turned one shipping container into our classroom. I did that with a friend of mine. The kids designed it, painted it, picked out the furniture. We just didn't let them use the heavy machinery until I knew how to do it, so I could build the curriculum and capture all the content. So they had videos. So during that process, I dropped a shipping container door on my leg. I have a scar on my shin. But then in the spring, they built their own shipping container. We sold it to a community nonprofit in Kensington. And they got to split the money up amongst themselves. But that whole process was like deadline after crazy deadline, and all the pivoting and yeah, the meditation came in really handy on that. And then we had some troubles this past summer with one of our payment providers where young people weren't getting paid on time. And that was definitely a lesson on values for us, where, hey, we can't work with an org like that again because of what happened and how we move and what we say. They didn't back it up, and they fell through. And now we knew that, even though they have large sums of money. But yeah, everything. Yeah, there's so many things can go wrong.
So given that, though, Carlos, what makes me think, again, to Kristen's point about this whole brilliantly resilient mindset, it's not like it suddenly happens one day, like, oh, you're brilliantly resilient and that's it, and this will be forever. It's constant learning after managing another problem and another problem.
Oh yeah.
I would imagine, and I'm sure you're using even these failures as teaching experiences for these kids and going, hey, look, even if this is a great idea that's going to serve the world and eventually make everybody happy, it's going to be a mess at times getting it across the finish line. But them knowing that is really important at the outset.
Yes. Yes. Yep. I mean, it's everything when you're working with young people. It's having the ability to say, I don't know, having the ability to say, we're doing this together. I hated that
Let's figure it
phrase.
out.
We're building the plane and flying it too. I hated that phrase. Um, but when it comes to us, like, we're creating it on the spot and going. So yeah, we understand that. And just to have adults that surround them that are non-judgmental, I think that's the major disconnect when it comes to our education system and the young people coming up, is you can't have an ounce of judgment in your bones if you're going to be an educator with the young people coming up today who grew up with social media, whose whole lives have been online, who one comment is seen by the entire school, and that's your whole world when you're 12 or 13. So if they come to you and you go, none of that matters, like, no, like, that matters. That's their whole world right now. Yeah, you need that non-judgmental adult. You need those safe spaces. And yeah, we've created that, and them watching me fail, yeah, makes all the difference.
Isn't it great when you can really screw up and go, I did that on purpose to
Yeah.
show you guys.
It's part of the plan.
You
Yeah.
guys another lesson.
Take a
Yeah.
picture. You know what? You know what is so fantastic here? You're voicing part of the brilliant, the resilient process of not being married to outcomes, not having the judgment piece to, okay, it's okay to fail. But you're also in the way that I'm hearing how you run this program, the expectations are high for these young people. It's not like, oh, we're just gonna, be down here at a lower level. And I think that that's a big disconnect in education and in families, that you figure, oh, we'll have to have low expectations so there's no judgment and fear or failure. No, you are saying we do expect a lot of you. And from what I've witnessed in terms of raising my kids and being connected to so many others, they really take pride in that you expect a lot out of them, and they see so much value in themselves, and they want to do that work to get there at this. But when you can do it without a fear of judgment, that's the sweet spot where they soar.
Yep. I agree with everything you just said.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's probably true too, coming from, you've emphasized a number of times this traumatic backgrounds that a lot of these kids have had. And despite the fact that most kids do not cause trauma, most kids feel like trauma in their lives is their fault. So there's probably a whole piece of that. You referenced that meditation piece, and I just wanted to touch base again before we wind up on this idea of treating these kids as whole humans, this meditation and this kind of holistic self-care sort of approach too. And is that a piece of it where you say to yourself, look, you deserve to be cared for, and sometimes you've got to do that yourself?
Yeah, no, that's half of our curriculum. We spend the first half hour of every class meditating and journaling. We were doing it more often, but we're doing monthly, like, dinners together where we're just here eating, speaking, talking, catching up with one another if we haven't seen one another. We are currently, one of my big pushes this year is to set up like a mentor-mentee, big brother, big sister aspect of our organization, to bring people into the fold so that there is an adult there. But yeah, it's everything. It's the biggest part. It's what is needed first. You have to get through the trust versus mistrust stage. And so many young people, I was in that stage until I was in my 20s. Like, if you're not past that stage and you have a hard time trusting, it's so hard to do anything. Like, you're living in a world where you feel like you're just alone, and it sucks. So yeah, no, we meditate, we journal, we bring in outside people. Currently, we were getting more movement involved. We're building a citywide Ninja Warrior League. So yeah, it's really eat and sleep is really big in it. They get so annoyed at how often and what they see me eat on a regular basis, and me being like, hey, let me read your chip bag, and they're like, what are you reading it for? I'm like, I'm not telling you. Want to see if I can eat those. But it's starting to like seep in that like, yeah, like your body, mind, and soul, once they are aligned, like, and anything is possible. And you gotta deal with each one to bring them all together.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Where can, before we get into our rapid fire session, I want to make sure we get to where can people go learn more? Do you get support from people, or is that more from the school systems? How can people get involved and help the mission?
Thank you. They can check out welovephilly.org, www.welovephilly.org. We Love Philly on all the social medias. On there, so as I mentioned earlier, we're building out that mentor-mentee piece and really starting to build these on-the-ground community committees and start to grow our tribe. So if you go to our website, there's a form on there that you can fill out if you do want to, and you do have the time, treasure, or talent to donate to the organization. That would be the biggest thing. And then all the social media channels. Yeah. There's so many ways to get involved. You just have to take that leap.
Awesome.
Well, this has been really a wonderful conversation, because for the longest time, when I grew up, I went to Catholic school, and there were 72 kids in my first grade class with one little nun in the front, and they expected us all to learn the same way. And many years ago, that's been proven that does not work. But you are taking it a step further and really addressing these kids as whole human beings, and that's what we're putting out into the world. So I really appreciate that. But now we're going to do something a little fun. Kristen and I decided that we talk a lot about how to get back on track, because you get off and you got to get back on again. So we came up with a couple of questions for our rapid fire reset. Kristen, I'm going to turn this over to you because this was your idea. I think it's great, but you take the lead.
I'm going to do the first one and you do the other two because I can't remember. But this is my one that, in terms of when I need to do a quick reset, when I feel myself spiraling, something's not going right, I have go-to songs every now and again. Do you have a go-to song that you go to?
So I have a go-to playlist.
Oh, that's good.
So if you can't tell, I have a lot of energy. So I'm always trying to keep my energy high and up. So there's, I don't know if you know the DJ Skrillex.
Can't say I do.
Yeah, he's like a famous EDM, electronic dance music DJ. But I went to a festival he was at in 2019, and someone put his whole set on YouTube. It's 80 minutes of just,
wow.
Yeah, if you work out, if you run, if I'm like, hey, I need 80 minutes of like pure work without any interruptions, that's the go-to. I'll put it in I don't know if you do show notes, but I'll put it in.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the
chat. Put that in there.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, so now the second question is, do you remember an incident when you laughed so hard that you just cried? Like just something that happened to you that was either stupid or funny, or usually it's me embarrassing myself that makes me laugh so hard that I cry.
Yes. So it has to be me. Like what happened to me?
No, it doesn't necessarily have to be you. Just something that you saw or something that made you, because my thing is there was this goofy video of a dog back when COVID started, and the little dog, they had somebody was mouthing it and saying, if these people don't get the heck out of my house, except the language was much more raw. And I still watch it and it cracks me up every time. It's the funniest thing. So anything that gets you to that laughing point.
So we were, so I was at a wedding a few years back. I had just reconnected with my now wife, and it was sort of like our first public. So we dated in high school and then broke up in college, and then we got back together after college. So this was like our first event back at a public thing, and it was this really fancy wedding. And it was kind of like, the wedding was boring. So I was like, let me go be the dancer and get everyone out there. And then people started getting out there, and then we started having fun. And then I pulled the SpongeBob and like literally ripped my pants like all the way down. And it was, yeah, there was still like 2 hours left of the wedding. So I had to we went out to the car, and my wife had safety pins or whatever they're called. And she pinned my pants back together. And then I sat back down and literally stabbed my butt the rest of the night with safety pins. It sucked, but it was funny. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. And then the last thing, your rock star moment, just one moment that you had that you were like, yes, I got this.
My rock star moment.
Rock star moment.
So what would that have been? July 2021. Me and a supporter, he's a journalist, a local journalist. We walked from Philly to Atlantic City
Wow.
to raise money for our first shipping container. That's now our classroom. So we threw this big event at Cherry Street Pier and next to the Ben Franklin Bridge. Our students were performing. We were raising money. We had giveaways. It was one of our first major, huge events of that scale. And then a reporter and I walked to Atlantic City to raise money for the container and to just bring a voice to education. Young people were coming back to school for the first time post COVID, and they didn't want to go back to the same old school. So that was the theme. So yeah, I walked to Atlantic City in the middle of July. Also a thing that I wouldn't recommend that anyone do. But
in July, you said?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, in July?
Yes, it was 98 degrees.
Oh.
We left, the event was Friday. We left Friday night. We did 17 miles Friday night. Then Saturday, we did 18 miles. And then on Sunday, no, it was 15, 17. And then Sunday, we did 30. And Saturday was 98 degrees.
Wow.
Saturday sucked. Yeah. But when we
That's
hit
definitely
the ocean,
a rock star moment for sure.
Yeah, we both walked to the ocean. Our young people were there. We had a drum line meet us on the boardwalk, and then they like followed us as we just like face planted in the ocean.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow, that sounds so cool.
Well, Carlos, I can't thank you enough for joining us today and sharing this mission with us. It is truly important. You are building communities not only with the kids, but with the business community and just really transforming education. And we are really grateful to have had you join us and share your mission with us.
Thank you. I appreciate you both.
Thank you so much. Kristen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Carlos. And everybody remember, go to welovephilly.org and see how you can get involved in the mission. Also, check out the show notes for the playlist that I can't wait to check out. I might be losing a lung or two in Tyler State Park when I'm running to it. It sounds like it's going to be an adventure. If you would like to have your own quick reset each week, sign up for our Brilliance Bit. It is our most popular thing that we offer here at Brilliant Resilient. Go to brilliantlyresilient.net. The pop-up window comes up. Just throw in your email and we will send you a bit of brilliance once a week right to your inbox. See y'all next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. Join our Facebook group and follow us on YouTube to be inspired with tools to reset, rise, and reveal your brilliance.